What's up, guys? Before I start this next video, if you're subscribed to my channel, I'd like to ask you to make sure that you're getting all my notifications, meaning that you're getting notified through YouTube every single time I put out a new video. I realized the other day that when you subscribe to somebody, the default setting is that you'll receive some notifications. If you're a fan of my content and you don't want to miss a notification every time I put out a new video, please make sure in your settings that you have the default setting changed to all notifications versus only some of them. So I just came home from brunch and I wanted to talk to you guys about this and see what you think. When I was at brunch, I was on my phone on YouTube and this video was recommended to me. Matt Walsh, the conservative commentator that I actually talked about in a recent video. This video was his take on this Dylan Mulvaney clip that has appeared suddenly out of nowhere pre-transition. So if you're not familiar with Dylan Mulvaney is this TikTok, I guess influencer now, TikTok creator, who went viral on TikTok by chronicling her transition from male to female, and it's like a kind of like a journal, like day 1 of womanhood, day 10 of womanhood, and so on.
My name is Dylan Mulvaney. I am a trans woman, and I am documenting my transition publicly on TikTok for the world to see. When people started watching and the numbers kept getting higher, I realized quickly how public my transition would be.
Now I will say, you know, trans issues, trans people, it always ends up being controversial because everybody has an opinion and all this stuff, but I will say that Dylan Mulvaney rubbed some people the wrong way, and I think this is a fair assessment. Some of the videos apparently were very naturally clickbaity and sort of repeating a lot of the historical tropes about women. So there was one clip that was like, it's day whatever of womanhood, and I've already cried 3 times, and I did this passive aggressive thing, like how am I doing as a woman? So it's kind of like, you know, obviously sarcastic and making a comical video about like what it means to be a woman. Of course, naturally, conservative people were even more outraged by that because it's like, not only are you trans, but now you're mocking what it means to be a woman, blah, blah, blah. So I do think it's fair that some people have seen that and reacted negatively to it. But the vitriol that has been thrown at this Dylan Mulvaney person is like just so mean-spirited and so unnecessary, and this Matt Walsh video is no exception. So the clip I'm about to show you is of Dylan Mulvaney going on The Price is Right pre-transition. I don't know how many years ago this was, but years ago, I guess, went on Price is Right, won.
Yes! You got it! Dylan's a winner! Dylan's a winner! Dylan, nice job, man. Look at that. We're gonna spin the wheel right after this. Don't go away, folks.
My God. Imagine being the father. Imagine being a dad and you're told that, you know, your son's gonna be on Price is Right, and you sit down and you have a beer and you sit down to watch him on Price is Right, and this is what you see. Imagine seeing your son. I don't know how you go. I don't know how you move on after that. Well, but of course, Dylan, all right, turn it off, please, turn it off. First of all, this guy's been starved for attention, you know, for a long time. Has been begging for attention. That's what all this is about anyway. But also, you note how his performance as a woman, as a quote-unquote woman, is identical to his performance as a flamboyant homosexual on Price is Right. And this is a performance as well. It's like no human being actually acts like that in real life. So this is a performance, like it's an affect that he's putting on.
Oh boy. So there's a lot to dissect here, right? So first, let's talk about first impressions. Watching that clip, the Price is Right clip, I thought it was funny. Like, I thought it was funny in a way that, like, it's funny when a little kid performs for at like the family reunion and does like a whole number. But it's harmless. In that clip, that boy is not hurting anybody, not doing anything vicious. And as one gay person watching another presumably gay person in that clip, right? This is pre-knowledge of, this person is going to transition and all that. Or if nothing else, just a very effeminate boy. I have a sort of like appreciation for seeing that, because I'm like, that's somebody who's comfortable in their skin. And it's endearing to see somebody, again, like a kid, like just not have any self-consciousness about it and just frolic on the stage. And so it's so interesting to me to then hear Matt Walsh project all these shame-based ideas of like, can you imagine if this was your child and you're seeing this, like, oh, the disgust, oh, how revolting. And there's so much to dissect there, right, with this. First thing is, somebody who goes on The Price is Right and behaves that way has always been that way. Like, that seems fairly obvious to me, that this isn't, yes, it's performative. For sure, it's a dramatic performance. And Dylan Mulvaney in that clip was definitely doing it for attention and for laughs. And it's like, in on the joke, right? Like, some people are laughing with Dylan Mulvaney and some people are gonna laugh at Dylan Mulvaney. And I think that's part of the shtick, even with TikTok now post-transition. It's like, some people are gonna get it and some people are gonna be like, oh, it's done purposely to get attention. And ironically, that's exactly what Matt Walsh is doing as well. Difference is, one person is kind of bullying and being mean-spirited. The other person is just, again, frolicking. This reminded me of when I was 5 or 6 years old. There was a kid in class that was super flamboyant and effeminate. And back then, I knew that I was gay, but obviously I wasn't thinking about sex. And I'm sure this kid wasn't thinking about sex either. So I knew that the kid, I don't know if I had the language for it, but I knew that he was another, and that we were of the same tribe, but that he was the extreme, and that I couldn't really relate to him, and that a boy wasn't supposed to be that way. I knew that that's what that was. And like 20 years later, maybe less than that, like 15 to 20 years later, I remember I was either in high school or in college, and I saw somebody on Facebook who I had grown up with, and that effeminate gay kid was in a photo, and I was like, oh, that's the kid, like, that's him now as an adult. And so I clicked his profile, and I saw that he is indeed like still super flamboyant, but not just that, very like gay pride gay guy. Like, every other picture has the rainbow flag, very, very, again, theatrical and flamboyant, kind of like Dylan Mulvaney. So any person who has paid attention to their surroundings has had gay people around them, I think, that they have seen for years or even for a lifetime be the way that they are. So is there a performative element to Dylan Mulvaney? For sure. But I'm sure that if Dylan Mulvaney's father saw their kid on TV, they would know that this is how Dylan Mulvaney has always been. That's not like it's not like Dylan Mulvaney was working at a coal mine, super rugged and alpha masculine, whatever that means, and then suddenly is on The Price is Right prancing around. Like, that's not how that works. So Matt Walsh has this mindset of, it's very like a limited perspective of, well, that's just not how a boy's supposed to act. Like, that's an embarrassment to me, that's an embarrassment to society. But I just think it's so interesting that somebody would watch that clip and the first thing they go to is shame, of like, if this was my kid, I would be ashamed. Like, this is disgusting. And so I'm watching this thinking like, he's bullying this total stranger on, like, this is what he does for a living. He's mocking this person and shaming this person. To me, that's more embarrassing. Like, Dylan Mulvaney in that clip is ridiculous and prancing around on stage, but there's no harm to it. Like, what are you really upset about? And it's so interesting that Matt Walsh said that thing, if I were Dylan Mulvaney's father, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm watching Matt Walsh thinking, can you imagine having a Matt Walsh in your life? Like, can you imagine being partnered to a Matt Walsh? It just feels very toxic to have somebody around you that's that sort of, what's the word, venomous, of like, ugh, how disgusting is this person's portrayal of manhood. It's a really, not just critical, it's like a very unpleasant mindset to be around. And I'm sure that somebody who feels that comfortable vocalizing that in a YouTube video as a grown man who has kids and a wife at home, I'm sure that this Matt Walsh character is far from a picnic at home and probably projects a lot of complexes onto his wife and his kids, because somebody who has that lack of nuance and self-awareness. And it's funny because it's just like that Candace Owens video I made recently, or these Ben Shapiro type characters. They're always well-spoken people, which then gives this false sense of credibility, but they're very limited in their scope of emotional intelligence, meaning empathy and their ability to see nuances in things. It's very like, everything's very black and white. Men are supposed to be this way, women are supposed to be this way. Done. Category. Gay people are this, black people are this. It's like everything has to fit neatly in a box, which to me, that's what children do. When you're an adult, you don't have this fear-based response of, it needs to make sense within this category. Otherwise, to me, that's like, you have work to do on a mental and emotional and psychological level. What I got from this clip is that Matt Walsh is one of those people who feels like if you're his child and you don't mimic his exact behavior, his exact life choices, then you're a failure and you're a disappointment to him. Like if you are not a mini-me of him, then you're a failure, which means he's a failure. And again, that to me, that feels like a very juvenile mindset, that your ego is that fragile. You become uncomfortable if somebody doesn't behave exactly as you feel that you're supposed to. Like if somebody doesn't meet your expectations. This is a complete stranger he's critiquing. A complete stranger, and he is disappointed on his behalf that this person isn't living up to the manhood that he feels all men are supposed to live up to. That seems ridiculous to me. I don't know what you guys think. He is disappointed that this total stranger, who he's not paying Dylan Mulvaney's bills, he doesn't know Dylan Mulvaney personally, he's not romantically attached to Dylan Mulvaney, but he's projecting all these expectations of how Dylan Mulvaney is supposed to behave. Dylan Mulvaney is not killing anybody, not committing any kind of crime. So what are you so worried about? What are you so afraid of? This always makes me wonder, people like Matt Walsh, what are they like behind closed doors? Like, how are they with their own family? Because these people always strike me as the type who would be abusive behind closed doors, like emotionally and mentally, because they're so hung up on things must be black and white. You have to fit in this category. You're a woman, you need to be delivering on your womanhood in this way. You're a man, you need to be delivering on your manhood in this way. And it's these really strange, to me, it seems like juvenile expectations of, it is your mission to perform this way in society. And to have that entitlement for a total stranger is really bizarre. You could watch Dylan Mulvaney and be like, I don't understand this person. I have nothing in common with this person. I'm not entertained by this person. All right, on to the next. But it's a whole different thing to watch someone like Dylan Mulvaney and then create a video on YouTube to be seen by the masses where you're essentially trying to engage in some public bullying of that person. Like, that to me is pathetic. I guess you could argue I'm doing the same thing, but in my mind, I am right now critically assessing somebody's character and values versus Matt Walsh shaming somebody for not being a man the way that he thinks a man is supposed to act. What's also fascinating to me about this is the hypocrisy of, in this clip, Matt Walsh keeps saying Dylan Mulvaney is just seeking attention. This is all a performance, whether it's on the TikTok or on Price is Right. This is Dylan Mulvaney's shtick to just get attention. Total narcissism is kind of what he's saying. But what are you doing, Matt Walsh? You're spending time on the internet creating videos, shaming people and using this like archaic language to incite an audience so that then you get more views, which is the same thing that Ben Shapiro does and Ann Coulter, Candace Owens. So it makes me think that all these people are really just narcissists trying to get more attention. And it also makes me wonder, do they genuinely believe what they're saying? Sometimes I wonder, I mean, I talked about this in the last video on Candace Owens. They can't possibly be this glib. Is this just putting on a show because they know it can secure viewership, which means securing income for them? Like, don't forget, this is a business. Social media, these people getting views on their YouTube videos, this is their career. To make a living, like to have built a career off of inciting an audience through fear, through anxiety, through these like tropes, it makes me think you must be a narcissist to some extent, that you don't care about the value or empathy part of it, that it's purely like, I'm just gonna do what I gotta do and share these outrageous opinions because it's gonna get me views. But the funny thing is, if they're all narcissists, including Dylan Mulvaney, like if all these people just want attention and thrive off of that, Dylan Mulvaney at the end of the day is the one getting the last laugh, because all of these people keep talking about Dylan Mulvaney, which is actually still bringing even more attention to Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney at the end of the day is the one who's getting invited to the White House apparently to talk to Joe Biden. And I wonder if to some extent that's part of the resentment too, that Candace Owens and Matt Walsh, they have so much vitriol and they're always angry and just critiquing other people all the time. I wonder if there's a resentment on their part that because they carry that energy with them, they're not as welcomed with open arms into, let's say, the White House. Dylan Mulvaney, at worst, could be seen as a caricature, but guess what? Dylan Mulvaney isn't being mean-spirited and isn't bringing anybody down. What Dylan Mulvaney is doing is celebrating Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney isn't really paying attention to these other people. And that's the interesting part in all this, that Dylan Mulvaney is actually now able to keep growing this momentum of now suddenly entering like political circles, because Dylan Mulvaney is focused on Dylan Mulvaney. These other people are all focused on low-hanging fruit of what can they talk about that's going to incite their already like furious and on edge audience. I'm curious, as always, what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments.